Men, if you think staying unmarried keeps you legally safe, you need to see what's happening in the UK.
Millions of unmarried couples who live together will be given new rights if they split up. It's part of a consultation launched by the government looking to shape future law and better reflect modern society. Well,
lawyers are calling this the biggest shake-up in relationship rights in 2 generations. These are plans to bring in new laws for unmarried couples. Currently, there are no rights for them in England and Wales. Now, as part of these government plans, they're looking at 3 areas. The first, we're expecting more rights to be given to couples who cohabit, and that's those who have lived together for at least 3 years or share a child together. And this would give them more financial stability should they split up. Secondly, they're looking at introducing automatic inheritance laws when a partner dies. Now, currently, if an unmarried person dies without a will, their partner is not treated as their next of kin. Now, thirdly, courts could give greater powers to those fleeing domestic abuse in both married and unmarried relationships.
So this is what is going on. The UK government has launched a consultation looking at how the law should deal with cohabiting couples in England and Wales. Now, this is only a proposed change in UK law, but men in America and elsewhere should not be too quick to dismiss it as just a UK issue. What starts as a policy debate in one country can eventually become a conversation in others. So if you're a man anywhere in the world, this is something worth watching because your country could one day be having the same conversation. Evidently, millions of people live together without getting married. And because modern marriage carries too much legal and financial risk, some men are saying, no thanks, I'll stay single. Others choose another route. They date, they move in with their partners and build a life together. Now, in the man's mind, he says, she's my girlfriend, not my wife, so I'm safe. But what happens if the law starts attaching more legal consequences to long-term cohabitation? Well, that's the issue we're going to unpack.
One of the biggest law changes in British history is coming into play. If you are in a relationship but not married and you're cohabitating for more than 3 years or you have a child together, you now have rights. So let me break it down for you. The government is basically planning on putting this thing into play whereby if you are with this person and you end up breaking up for whatever reason and you've been living together for 3 years, you as a woman now have rights to basically have half of whatever his earnings are or his assets are, etc.
So I want to clarify something at this point because you have probably had other people saying, oh, if you've lived together for 3 years, she gets half your assets. That's a catchy headline, but that's not an accurate description of the government's proposal. The proposed framework is more complicated than simply saying 3 years together equals half. What the government is doing, the government is considering a framework for certain long-term unmarried couples, including couples who have lived together for at least 3 years or couples who live together and have a child. And then there's this one, what happens if you die? Right now, an unmarried partner has no automatic right to inherit under the laws governing inheritance. But the UK government is proposing automatic inheritance rights for long-term unmarried couples. In other words, if you're living together but you're not married, the law could still give your partner inheritance rights when you die without a will. So, gentlemen, if you are choosing not to get married because you want to keep your legal and financial affairs separate, don't assume that simply calling someone your girlfriend means you are completely outside the legal framework. The government is not just changing what happens when a relationship ends, it's potentially changing how people decide whether to marry, live together, or stay single. And that's where men need to start paying attention.
UK government, again, getting involved in personal matters, wants to bring in new laws regarding people who are cohabiting. I think, again, they're probably well-intentioned, but it's going to create more problems than it's going to solve. What you're probably going to find is that people stop cohabiting or reduce the amount of cohabiting, because if you stay together for 3 or more years, the other party can claim your assets. Again, not fair, not right. And although the government might think they're doing justice, they're actually creating problems. People who are cohabiting and choose not to marry, they do it for a reason, and they should be allowed to be able to choose that rather than the government interfering and saying, right, okay, now if you're cohabiting, we're going to create a whole new set of rules.
To start with, why do people, and I mean men in this case, choose to cohabit rather than get married? Here's why. A young man looks around. He sees marriages ending. He sees expensive divorces. He hears stories about disputes over property. He hears stories about custody. And he starts thinking, maybe I'll just stay single. Some men take it a step further and choose cohabitation because they want companionship without taking on the legal and financial consequences associated with marriage. But then come proposals like this, which could fundamentally change the calculation for those men. Because here's what could happen if laws like this are introduced. Men may change their behavior entirely. If men already see modern marriage as too risky and now long-term cohabitation starts becoming risky too, some may simply opt out altogether, never to come back again. And that raises a much bigger question. What kind of society would that leave us with?
This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to look very carefully at rights for unmarried couples. There are 3.5 million cohabiting couples in this country, and it's growing exponentially, and yet they often find on separation they're left with no financial rights whatsoever.
Well, the government sees this as part of its push to address violence against women and girls, and that's because domestic abuse is more prevalent in unmarried relationships, and women often feel that they can't leave because they can't afford to and that they feel trapped.
This is why I am constantly telling men, know the rules before you play the game. Because if you're going to enter a serious relationship, you need to understand the legal and financial consequences of the choices you're making. Now, the government says these reforms are about fairness, protecting vulnerable people and bringing the law in line with modern society. But ultimately, these reforms are geared towards protecting women, right? Marriage is already perceived by some men as carrying significant legal and financial risk, which is one reason some men choose to avoid it entirely. And now, if cohabitation begins to carry additional legal consequences as well, some men may become more reluctant to cohabit. And children already create significant long-term responsibilities anyway, which is another reason some men are becoming more cautious about having children. So eventually we have to ask, are we actually making family formation safer, or are we making people increasingly afraid to form families at all? This is really not about one proposed change in the UK law. It's more about the direction modern relationships are heading. And I want young men watching this to understand one thing. Understand what you are getting into. If you want marriage, understand marriage. If you want to cohabit, understand cohabitation. If you want children, understand the legal and financial responsibilities that come with having them. And if you decide that remaining single is a better option for you, understand that decision too. I'm not here to tell you which choice to make. I'm telling you to make the choice with your eyes open, because you don't want to discover the rules after the game is over. So let me hear from you. What do you think about this proposed law? And as a man, if you were in this situation, what would your next move be? Drop your thoughts in the comment, and if you found this video useful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Shattered Families. Until the next one, stay peaceful, fellas.